We're hearing this week that BC developers are pushing back against foreign buyer policies, in particular against the federal ban on the purchase of residential property by non-residents. In an open letter last week, a group of real estate executives called on the federal and provincial governments to reconsider their stance. And in response, Premier David Eby and BC's Housing Minister Christine Boyle says there's no chance of that happening. Well, with us here in studio is Michael Ferreira. He is a Senior Vice President with Anthem Properties, a local development company. Michael, hi there. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Gloria.
Okay, how would you describe the current real estate market from a developer's point of view?
It's certainly challenged compared to what it has been over the past, say, 10 to 15 years. And there's two sides of it. There's the pre-sale sector of the market, which is probably the most challenged today and is the most difficult for developers to bring projects forward in. And then you have the sector where you have completed product that projects that were sold or pre-sold in 2022, 2023 that are completing this year. There was, leftover inventory in a number of those projects that are completing now that are in the market today. And that sector of the market is doing better. There's buyers, smart buyers who see an opportunity where there is a lot of choice in the market. There are, softer pricing that has come through and incentives being offered by some developers who want to get through that inventory a little more quickly. So there's two sort of dynamics at work today.
Well, and it's quite a shift from the days when we saw long lineups for pre-sales, right? People were just itching, fighting, elbows up, to try to get those suites at one point. So
yeah.
What are the factors that are contributing to the current situation?
There's what we like to refer to as a lot of noise out there, whether it's the geopolitical situations that we see around the world. There's economic uncertainty. Some people might feel like their jobs are at risk given what some of the economic conditions and what they're hearing in the market today. The narrative, though, is it's a little misleading. We do focus group studies with purchasers that have gone through the buying experience recently and have closed on their units and have moved into their units. And these are people, some of them have just bought recently, and they're telling us, look, we feel good about our situation. We know we can afford the home. We have the choice in the market today, and we're going to make that buying decision. On the pre-sale side, it's a little more complex because you do have a few end user buyers, but there's very few of those who are going to make a buying decision 2 or 3 years in advance for a home that they're going to move into. They don't know if their life situation is going to change by then. So that's where we do need to count on investors to come into the market and help us satisfy the bank's needs for a pre-sale requirement to obtain financing to actually build the project.
I see. Well, and I mentioned this open letter from many BC developers calling for different levels of government to pull back restrictions on foreign buyers. On our afternoon show on the coast, I've had discussions about it with Michael Audain from Polygon. He signed on. Hani Lamam from Cressy Development as well signed on. But Anthem, your company, was not part of the group. So what's your take on the current foreign buyer restrictions, the federal ban and the 20% tax on property purchases here in BC?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very popular policy among voters. But I think if you were to ask a lot of the politicians, even those who came out and responded to them last week, Premier Eby and Christine Boyle, they'll admit, I think, quite readily that it really hasn't had much impact on affordability, on the supply of new homes. If anything, it's actually curtailing the supply of new homes just simply because we do need some of that foreign capital coming in, whether it's to help us finance the project, provide equity for the projects to get built, and for some of the foreign purchasers who do want to come here and eventually become landed immigrants. And they're not all speculators. Some of them are coming, and I mentioned this before, where even from an economic perspective, there are companies here that are trying to attract talent from outside of Canada. If that talent is not able to come here and purchase a home here, it makes it more difficult to attract that talent. So that's another way of looking at it. They're not all speculators. They're not all coming here and driving prices up. And I will also say, I don't think the industry is necessarily looking, as Premier Eby put it, a return to the Wild West of the old days. It's really just trying to engage in a conversation with government, and let's have an intelligent conversation and see how we can perhaps move forward, bring a policy in where you have some guardrails on it. And I think that's essentially what the industry is asking for.
Okay, well, and specifically, what would be within those guardrails from your view? What would you want to see change in the province's housing policies when it comes to foreign buyers?
Well, I don't think we have to open it up like we had before, where foreign buyers could come in and buy any type of residential unit, whether it was a single-family home or a pre-sale condo unit or a completed condo unit. I think if you even restricted it just to the new product in the market, and I know some have suggested some other guardrails as well, where perhaps they have to rent the unit if they are an investor and they're not an end user who's going to move into the home. Perhaps they have to rent it for a period of 5 years before they can do anything with it. I think there's a lot of options, and I think what the industry is really looking for is an engagement with government to discuss some of the policies that are out there.
Well, another issue, and a very important part of this discussion, is the affordability issue as well. I know Hani Lamam says we're not building new homes to be affordable. We can't build new homes to be affordable because it's construction costs, permits, all of the rest of it makes that impossible. So if the goal of restrictions on foreign buyers is to keep housing prices low, I mean, what incentive could governments have to remove them or to change them, do you think?
Well, I heard another industry stakeholder on a podcast recently, and he asked the question, why do we tax housing like we tax cigarettes? And, I thought that was a very interesting way of putting it, because, housing is something that's obviously a fundamental need for people. And yet we tax it like it's something that will kill us, essentially. I think we need to look at the whole spectrum of costs and fees that go into delivering housing, because today it's just far too expensive to deliver housing at an affordable price that people can afford. And it's, there's labor costs, there's input costs, supplies, but also the taxes and fees that are getting charged all along the way by multiple levels of government that I think we have to look at.
How much wiggle room do you think there is on this? We heard the response from the provincial government to this letter from BC developers, from the Premier, from the Housing Minister, Christine Boyle. Their response was, we are not going back. Do you see some room to move?
I think there has to be. Otherwise, we're going to be in a situation in a couple of years where, because we're not launching any new projects today, and we're not starting construction of these new projects today, and the market will pick up again. It's cyclical, just as the market slowed down as it has over the past couple of years. It will pick up again, and when it does pick up, and we don't have any housing in the market that should have been getting built today and in the next couple of years, we're going to be in a situation where we're in a supply deficit. And Economics 101, will probably drive prices up.
Right. In the meantime, with market prices cooling, and I know I had a discussion with Surrey's Mayor Brenda Locke, who said, it wasn't long ago, I saw 17 cranes when I looked out of the windows from Municipal Hall. Now there are 2, and there are a lot of projects that are completely stalled right now. So where does that leave you? Where does that leave developers over the next few years?
We're still grinding away and trying to make things work. In the meantime, there are some developers. We're in a situation where we're a well-diversified developer. So we have shopping centers, we have commercial properties, industrial. If one sector isn't doing as well, we can rely on a different sector that can carry us through. There are some developers that are very just focused on residential. So those developers are going to have a tougher time, and we've already seen layoffs in the industry, and not just in the development industry, but also suppliers, labor, trades. That's I think the misconception people have about the quote unquote greedy developers. It's just them making the money, with their fancy suits and fancy cars. But there's a whole other sector of the industry that we need to keep employed.
Michael, thank you for coming in.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Michael Ferreira is Senior Vice President with Anthem Properties. And if you'd like to comment on the foreign buyer issue, feel free, earlyed at cbc.ca.